this thing where we're like, no, I have healed. I have. No, don't force healing on yourself. Maybe you do need more time. Maybe you need some more space to kind of process it, because it's natural. I think people deal with things very differently. But joining us right now to unpack this a little bit further is Nomfundo Zama, who is an African and intuitive healer, herbalist, and strategist, and the visionary behind Initiate Wellness and Ukukhanya KweAfrica. Nomfundo, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am very, very, very well. Thank you so much for having me this morning, Ntsako. It's been a beautiful morning, and I'm hearing you speaking about being triggered and healing and all these things that I really enjoy speaking about.
Yeah, it was so funny though, because one of my friends, we were sitting around the table as the girls, we were just chatting, and one of them was like, yeah, my ex decided to DM me, and I just became angry all over again. So then I asked her, I was like, Haibo, when are you the same person who said you've healed from this thing? Are you healed, or are you just not triggered? And I feel like this is a conversation that we need to have, because a lot of us, we kind of get to a point where we think we're healed, we've gone over it, but it's because that person is not in our space anymore. It's not in our frequency or vibrations anymore. When do we identify when we've healed?
Maybe let me just backtrack it in this way, right? There's parts of us that actually go through a process of healing. So let's say when something happens, like this tragic thing happened between you and your partner, and they decide that they're breaking up. There's that part of you that's like, okay, cool. In this current moment, I am going through a parts of myself that are going to heal about that incident itself, right? So sometimes I think we have healed by from the incident, but we really actually haven't healed from other parts of the relationship that actually hurt you as a human being, right? So when she said that she was healed, I want to play devil's advocate right now and say, maybe in her head, she just thought that she had healed from the incident, not realizing there's other things that will trigger her about the experience had with that person. Because every single thing we go through, the body remembers, right? And if the body remembers, do we actually really get healed, or are we always in the process of healing? And triggers are an invitation for me as a person to ask myself, what is these things that are being triggered inside of me? And it's an opportunity for me as a person to actually start now figuring out what is the thing, because one part of it could be healed, which I don't really believe in. I don't think we ever get healed. I think we're always in the process of healing. But there are other parts of the experience that get triggered. So I'd say, as I said, again, I'm going to play devil's. I don't think she was lying. I think she thought she had healed from it, but parts of the experience in totality had not actually fully processed. And the body, when she got that message, was like, oh, wait a minute. That part of me actually is uncomfortable with this person actually texting me right now. That part of me is not feeling great right now. And I thought I was okay. I thought I was fine. But you actually asking her should actually help her as an invitation to say, okay, what are the parts that I haven't healed about this? What are the parts of me now that I need to attend to that are being triggered by this experience of this dear human being saying, hey, stranger?
And the reason why I'm also asking this is because it's not even just like a relationship chat, right? When you think about how you show up, I know that this year or the past couple of months, the one thing that has been, coming up is my firstborn abandonment issues. The fact that emotionally, I'm constantly abandoned. So I deal with things in isolation. You'll never know if I'm actually going through something. I could be sitting here with the red lipstick on, but I could be going through the absolute pits of hell. And, it keeps showing up in my friendships now. I'm just blessed that I have friends who get it. When I go into a quiet corner to deal with things, I always find them ready for them to, receive me. But it's also that it's a bit of a problem though. And I know that I speak for many when we say, these things come up, the childhood traumas, death, grief, divorce, loss of a child, abandonment, so are we actually healing? Like what are we doing here? What is happening with the heart, and what is happening with the human experience? Because I worry that, and she was even saying the same thing. She was like, so how am I gonna navigate the next relationship if I'm still pissed off at this one?
I think I said it earlier on, we are in the process of forever healing, right? I think one of the biggest things I always say is like, if you're going to start with yourself as a person and start figuring out the parts of yourself that actually are struggling, right? You spoke right now about being a firstborn daughter in the household and the pressures of being that person in the household and understanding what does it mean for you, you know, Ntsako, as a person. How do I feel having all these parts of me that have been parentified by my and my siblings, and how it's showing up on a daily basis right now, how I feel abandoned by the world because I'm always be the one, I have to be the one who has to show up first for people, because if I don't show up, other people are just not going to be there and they're going to reject me and all of those things. So it's always about actually figuring out for yourself, where am I from a place of a mental space, an emotional space, and then taking the time to expand on those things. So if I'm feeling this thing, which is anger, right? Where does it come from? Does it come from the fact that my relationship with my mother and father was not that great? And if that's the case, where does that come from? You know, it's always trying to find the parts where things come from, because once you understand that, once you understand what we call the root cause, it is easier for you to experience life in this current moment by understanding that when Nomfundo is saying something that sounds like something else, they are not saying they're leaving me right now. They're not saying they abandoned me right now. They're not saying that they are don't want to be in my life. They're actually going through their own thing, and I just need to appreciate the fact that the person is here for me right now, while I am processing all the pain from what was happening for me in the past, you know. And obviously there are so many beautiful tools that we can use to be able to go through the healing work, you know, of actually finding things. But I think right now we're just kind of speaking about how does one get there? It's literally asking yourself on a daily basis, what parts of me right now am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? You know, when you wake up in the morning and say, before I'm like, what am I feeling in my body? It's actually understanding what's happening in your nervous system. So when your friends, as you were saying, Ntsako, earlier on, when they receive you, you are also able to let them receive you, you know, in whichever way. And they're able to hold you, because even if you are saying something that triggers them and they are kind of wanting to hold you to say, hey, that doesn't feel great, or hey, we see that you're not okay, you are able to receive that part of us where we have to check in with ourselves on a daily basis and say, how am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? You know, and when I'm feeling it, who does it remind me of? You know, going through that whole process in the morning. And when I say in the morning, I say in the morning, but it's just a daily practice of being like, I always check every single day and figure out what's happening inside of you.
Yeah. And but you know, after that check, I mean, what happens, you know? For example, if I'm dealing with the parentification aspect of me, or you know, you were speaking so beautifully about how you know, you, that feeling of abandonment, and then sometimes you also even abandon yourself in that process, right? Because it's an emotion that you're used to. So you're used to saying, you know what, I'll just get up and do everything for everyone because I'm so used to already abandoning myself. What do we do with that now? I mean, you know, there's I think also another thing that really breaks my heart right now is seeing on social media the amount of families that are falling apart. The divorce rates are insane. And, you know, that, I mean, how do you even get over that? You know, people who have been married 20, 30 years plus, who are saying, you know what, I'm calling it quits. You know, what about the kids in that moment? You know, how are we navigating that? You know, because life doesn't stop. And I think that's the frustrating part, is that you could sometimes just want a day, or you just want like a week where time could just freeze. No one would need you, so that you can just deal with these things. But guess what? You still have to kind regards. You're going through the pits of hell, and then someone says, hey, please check your emails. It's like, hey, in front of me, I'm not thinking about emails right now. I'm going through the most. Like, how do you navigate that?
I think the best way I can answer that is, I'm going to use myself as an example. I think it's the best way I can do that, right? So when it comes to how do you show up in the world when the world is literally asking you to show up in the way that they want you to, it's actually taking stock. I'm going to go back to taking stock. So let's say, for an example right now, let's use yesterday, actually, because yesterday I was really struggling. I've been traveling, all of these things, and I was still needed by other people, right? But I personally could not show up. Right. But this is years of doing the same thing where I was able to say to myself, I cannot do these things. I shall not show up for something that I cannot show up with. Right. So that is the goal. The goal is to be able to have such beautiful self-worth and sense of self that you are able to say no and yes when you need to. Right. And that's the goal. Right. Able to get there. But how do you get there is making small increments on a daily basis of putting small boundaries, right? If a kind regard is coming to you on a Monday morning, and you know for a fact that you're not really dealing well, and it's a Sunday, and you're like, and there are also children in the household, asking yourself as a person to say, listen, what is the thing that brings me joy? And asking everybody to stop and saying, I'm going to be back in an hour, jump in the car, something so small as jumping in the car, going to have an ice cream on the beach could change your life. It sounds small, it sounds measly, it sounds like, what the hell is this woman saying? But for you to be able to do the big thing of being able to take the day apart, you know what I'm trying to say? To say no for the whole day, you need to start doing more things on a daily basis, right? Being able to say no and putting boundaries. And a lot of the times we think boundaries are for other people, meanwhile boundaries are for ourselves, you know? The boundary that you are putting right now is for Nomfundo. So if I'm saying right now, the kids are running around, I know if I don't have 10 minutes to myself today, 1 hour to myself, I will not be able to operate tomorrow. Consciously saying to myself, I need to rest. My body needs to regulate, you know? And when I say regulate, I mean allowing your body to get to a state of saying, I am not dying, I am not fighting, I am not going to break down, but I am actually calm and I am safe. So when I use the word regulating or nervous system regulating, that's what I'm speaking about, right? So for you to be able to get there, you need to be able to say, hey, I'm in chaos right now. I'm not okay. But everybody in this 10 minutes or in this hour, they have to stop. But the boundary is for you. So you say to yourself as a person, I'm putting a boundary for myself to take the time that I need right now and go get that ice cream, get to the beach, take that hour, let the brain do what it needs to do. Let the soul come to a place whereabout it is able to actually, right, remind you who you are as a human being, right, and reboot you and regulate. This is not something which is a quick fix. For you to even take the first 10 minutes probably will take you 3 or 4 days of you negotiating with yourself, right? But I bet you right now, Ntsako, the first day you say to yourself, I need to rest, is the first day you start asking, not asking per se, but it's the first time you start actually allowing your brain to say, okay, in these moments, what are the things I'm dealing with? Right? Because we are so busy just living because we're really trying to ignore the subconscious and the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, which is saying, you haven't done that, you haven't done that, you're also not a great person, you did that, you have as a child, that is happening, that is happening. So we are on the go, right? And we don't want to stop, because when we stop, we have to take stock, you know? Actually working to a place whereabout you can take stock, you know, and that starts at small little boundaries that you put for yourself, and you actually ask yourself to make the time to do those things, you know. And as time, and when I say as time goes, I'm not really asking, I'm not saying lots of time, but as you're getting comfortable with that chaos in your brain, right, you start journaling, you know. start journaling and you start saying it out loud, and then you start communicating with other people and saying, oh my God, when I gave myself this time, this came up, and you are able to unpack those things. You know what I mean? Because it's all about being able to articulate the feelings, because if you don't know what you're feeling, you don't know how to heal. If you don't know what's happening in your body, you don't know how to get to the next place, right? So it's literally being able to get to a place of stillness and a place of allowing your body to be still. And I know I'm saying it right now, and it sounds like this really easy thing, or I'm saying it so nonchalantly. I promise you, even as I say it, it is heavy for me, because I know how much it takes for you to actually get to a place where you are able to take stock of these things. Because all these things that you're running away from are maybe the fact that as a child, something so atrocious happened that you compartmentalized it and you don't want to think about it. And at the age of 7 years old, when that thing happened, you didn't understand what it was, and you just put it in the back of your head. So now your brain and when your subconscious and your unconscious mind are saying, hey, we need to handle this thing. But because you were like, wait a minute, I don't want to handle this thing. I don't know what this thing is. And it's emotionally taxing. I don't want to deal with that. And then you started as a child to just move and do certain things, you know? So there's so many parts of ourselves that are so hidden in our unconscious and our subconscious mind. And what we need to do is start doing small things on a daily basis to honor ourselves and honor all these parts of ourselves, so we are able to deal, you know? And before I even keep quiet right now, I want to just kind of also say, when you said something about there are so many families who are broken, the divorce rate and all of those things. I would like for us, let me not say you, us as human beings, to understand that every single person in that instance was a child who went through trauma, right? So as soon as we get to a place where we understand that the person who did the wrong thing, the person who did the right thing, the people who are actually suffering because of these two people who are actually divorcing and things are breaking apart, those people are individuals, and they also have their own individual trauma, right? Because I feel like a lot of the times what we do, we box all of these big ideas or these big things that happen as it is divorce. We need to remember it is human beings who are struggling with their own inner parts who have come certain things that have gotten them to that place, you know. I think as a society, we are very comfortable to name things in the big, you know, and we need to come back to a sense of self and community where we understand the people who are going through these things are individuals who have their own experiences, who have their own things that they're going through. And that is me not condoning any rubbish. I need you to understand that. This is happening right now, and because somebody is abusive and stuff. I'm not saying just because he was abused, now he's a human, we have to empathize with them. No, I am saying because these two people are in a relationship and now they're divorcing because maybe let's just say the husband was abusive, we need to understand that the husband themselves went through their own thing. We're not condoning it, right? But for us to be able to repair, we need to see them as human. You know, does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
There are children involved. There are people involved. There's all kinds of people that are involved in all of that. So, and I know I'm saying a lot right now after you asked me one thing, but yeah.
No, I get you. And I think, you know, we're all just kids with debit orders now. we're kids.
Yes, we are just kids with debit orders.
Literally. And honestly, I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I'm glad you kind of summed it up quite beautifully. Also, what happens if you, and I don't know if it was your intuition or reading my mind, because I was about to ask you, know, what happens when you don't do the work, and you summed it up so beautifully. Nomfundo, unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I'm going to ask us to pin it here, but where can we find you on social media, via WhatsApp, so that, you know, if anyone wants to access your services, they can do so?
You can find me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I'm Nomfundo Zama, and on Instagram, I am Initiate Wellness. So at Initiate Wellness is the business page. And you can send us a DM, or you can send us a WhatsApp, which is also one of the easiest ways to get to us, 065 955 4233. or finally an email, which is info@initiate.africa. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And also, not your intuition telling you that, yes, I was 7 when that atrocious thing happened, okay? But we won't get into that today. We won't.
I'm a healer, Ntsako. I'm a healer. You know what and when it we need to appreciate the moments, and thank you so much for sharing that is something that was that came up for you. And yes, when you have time, I'm more than open to have conversations about all of these things.
I'd love to, darling, but we run out of time for now, but trust me, the conversation will continue. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, bonga mean.
Amazing stuff. It is at 8:01 Central African Time. It's time for news.